Hello, 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 and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I'm a master manifester, and I'm sure you are too. You're watching content like this. The name of this channel is Manifesting Magic the Practical Way, because we got to talk about all those practicalities with manifesting the lives that we choose. One of those practicalities that I'm going to focus on for the next few minutes is going to be the power of groupthink, right? So I remember learning this term a long time ago in what is it called when I was in college the first time. And like I'm thinking like what time? Well, it was probably bachelor's degree or something. But I remember studying sociology and I remember thinking like groupthink, what does that even mean? And so it's much, much bigger than the idea that when people get in groups there, they tend to think alike, right? Well, groupthink is like the beginnings of like mob mentality, right? When we wonder how people did these crazy things that they wouldn't do by themselves, but they did it because they were attached to a group. So to me, I've always had this attitude, I guess, ideas towards groupthink as if it was something negative for the most part. But I mean, I guess we already know that the same information, if it's positive information, but on the other end is going to be a positive way you might see groupthink, right? But groupthink is mostly dangerous. And it's mostly dangerous because if you look at the bell curve of what people achieve in society. So I'm talking about success and growing and goals and all that. That's who I am. So if that's what you're, if that's what you want to talk, this is what I'm talking about, right? Rarely relationships, rarely that kind of stuff. Mostly about success and creating things and enjoying the life that you choose, especially in your work world or what you offer the world. Is and how you get compensated for it. Like that area is extremely important to me. I got to have the most freedom and ease in it, and it's just always been that way. I refuse to go to work and do things that I just really, really just hate doing. And so that's what being an entrepreneur, that's what creating things, whatever it is, that's my mindset. So just thinking about things like groupthink, my mind automatically goes to somewhere negative. It's just like, oh, when people get together, they start to blah, blah, blah. But I guess if you think about groupthink, it goes a little bit deeper when you discuss things like law of attraction or the law of assumption or the law of least resistance. And you start talking about a lot of what people refer to as new age conversations, right? I don't really label things, but if I hear something and it rings of truth, it's going to get my attention, right? So with groupthink, it often veers off into the negative side of things because that's what I was saying. If you look at the bell curve of what people are doing in life, achieving, like where the majority of the people stand, it's always somewhere in the middle, right? In the middle, you know, in the middle pay range, in the middle house, neighborhood range, in the middle job range, all these things in the middle. It's always, but there's some outliers off to the end and outliers off to the end. I've always been an outlier to some degree, but you have that, right? So when you get into that middle, it's so many people, and I believe people are like magnets, right? I believe people's energy, the individual energy of a person is like a magnet, right? I believe that when we are in environments and we are just moving around being as who we are and the person that we are, the people that are most attracted to us, the people that come to through our space, the people that we happen to bump into are all people that we magnetically attracted into our space in some kind of way. And the same thing for them, right? So I believe that people are very magnetic and very attractive. I mean, I have not seen a situation to where that's not the case. And, some people's magnetism is a lot stronger for positive things and some people's magnetism is strong for negative things. And depending on where you're at in your personal development and what areas you're still operating on low frequencies in, you can be magnetic to things that you don't want. So because I know of the magnetism of that group, that middle group, that largest group that covers any society, any environment, right? Because at any given time, you got about 70% of the people somewhere around that bell curve, maybe about 20% of people sitting in poverty, and then maybe about 10% doing a little bit better than everybody in society to some degree, right? So that's always pretty much the case. Now, if you ask the average person, where do you want to fall on that bell curve, right? Do you want to fall into poverty? Do you want to fall into lower working class? Do you want to fall into working class? Do you want to fall into middle class? Do you want to fall into upper class? Do you want to fall into upper working class? There's all these dissections when you teach sociology. Do you want to fall into what they say the 1% is at, right? Which is really not 1%. It's like even less than that, right? So almost no one I used to ask students this in the classroom, which one would you prefer to be in? It was like my preference. Everybody shot to the other side of the spectrum, the side of the spectrum with the least amount of people that had the biggest amount of privilege and benefit, right? Often students would be like, can we get middle? Can we get rid of the middle? Can we get rid of the rich? And I'm like, I've never seen a society where you didn't have a beginning, middle, end, where you didn't have an up and there's a down, where you didn't have an in and there's an out. You didn't have a hard and there's a soft. That's always the opposite of everything. So there's not going to be a society where you have anybody who's living a great life or somebody else is living what someone else might call not a good life, but they may not see it that way. So it just depends, right? So almost no times did anybody ever say, I choose working class. I choose lower middle class. I choose, it wasn't their choice. Now, whether or not they were brought up in it and lived in it and were proud of their families and where they came from, that was a different subject matter. Because I always tell people, find a way to separate yourself from your achievements in some kind of way or what you accumulate or create in life, right? It's not personal. So if you don't have it, don't take it so personal and to heart that you don't have something. But at the same time, I wouldn't get caught up into being angry or aggravated about what my family was or where I came from or what they produced, right? Because I think that's useless, because you get a life, you get opportunity, the doors are wide open. In our lives, we can begin to create anything. It just depends on when do we wake up? When do we start to realize I'm in charge of this life and I have to, be the captain of my own ship? So some people realize that at like 15 years old. Some people realize that at 40. Some people realize it at 60. No age is too late, right? Whenever you realize it, that's the youngest you're going to ever be. So from there, you can move forward. But I guess I think about the idea of how impactful it is when you are surrounded by people or environments who are not on the same frequency or mindset that you are, with a lot of major issues in your life, and attempting to interact with those environments like as if they are what you are looking for, or the next level, are developed, right? This happens especially in the workplace and things like that, right? So I'm the kind of person, I'm not going to anything social. If you tell me it's not mandatory, I'm never going to go do it at work. Because when I go to work, I flip off a piece of me that really cares about like the deepness of life and love. I'm still in that mode, but I don't give none of that away in the environment because it's not a receptive environment for it. If everybody started believing in that, then there'd be some trouble. The fact that I'm one of the only people that kind of thinks that way means that I get away with a lot of things that a lot of people aren't trying, right? Because they think that, I'm going to be looked down upon. I don't really care about that kind of stuff, right? So what I was saying the other day is that groupthink is so strong, and it gets to the end of the year and they have all of these activities and things that people are doing in environments and stuff like that. And you just like, I don't want to socialize. I don't want to do any of these things, right? In the workplace. And so I've completely opted out of it. I'm like, I've worked with people before that said they don't celebrate holidays, they don't do this and that, and everybody just flat out leaves them alone. But I think that when you start off places and people think that you're an extrovert, sometimes it throws them off when they see that you're not interested in socializing with them outside of what needs to be done for the job, right? And so when you ostracize yourself on any level, and that could be in your family, it could be in the workplace, it could be out in public, right? Have you ever ostracized yourself out in public on purpose? I have, doing many different things, right? Especially when it comes to like doing something kind for somebody or taking a moment to help somebody or do something like that. Those are some things that I see everybody just walk by and I'm like, I think I'll go ahead and take this to another level, right? Or ask this person if they need help, or I'll step in and say something. Is this the way the line is supposed to go? There are two lines right here, or should we be in one line or should we be in two? Everybody in the line was thinking the same thing, but nobody wanted to say it because group think is like a force field in people's minds. They can't even force themselves to think outside of what is the majority doing right now in this situation, right? So when I opt out of these things and people are like, oh, she didn't come to the Thanksgiving dinner. She didn't, and I don't feel anything. I used to really, and people think it's easy. At first it wasn't easy. I used to get caught up in that and think, oh man, they're going to think I'm this, they're going to think I'm that, they're going to think I'm this. But when you get to the point where you just like, I think I'm great and I'm done with that part of my life or going on about what people think of me, and you can move on to like being creative and developing and evolving and all of those sort of things and manifesting the life that you choose. You don't really sit around and think about how am I disappointing others and what would they say, what would they think. I always think in my head at any given time, somebody is disappointed with you. If you can just latch on to that and be okay with the fact that at any given time, somebody is disappointed in a choice you made, a reply you had, a response you had, a reaction you had, an idea you had, your presence, and you can't even control how they feel about your presence. So don't even waste your time going there. At any given time, somebody can be disappointed. So when you can get past the idea of disappointing people for like expectations that aren't even valid or expectations that aren't even worthwhile, you can really start to live, right? The freedom I have in just the idea that I know people are looking over and thinking like, who does she think she is? Why does she think she doesn't have to participate in this stuff and we all do? I don't think you have to do it. I'll be honest with you. You do it because you want to do it. I don't do it because I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? And so you have to get to the place where the strong draw and magnetism of groupthink doesn't phase you when you know that you're sitting or perched properly in a mindset or an idea that works for you, right? Um, I'm not beyond the idea that you can't be affected by these environments to a certain degree. I think that's kind of foolish to walk in environments. You can tell it's time for me to have a twist. You can, I mean, to walk in environments and think that people won't affect you, right? I find myself doing things every now and then that I've sworn against, like empty pleasantries. Every now and then I find myself caught up in it. I'm like, look at that. It wasn't even in my mind. It wasn't even in my plan or my attitude or energy. But for some reason, when this person came up to me, I said, oh, what are your plans for Thanksgiving? And it's not a bad question. I just really didn't care that much because it really wasn't something I would ever ask on my own. I'm going to ask you questions that are a lot deeper than that, right? So what do you think about the energetic space around here? Like, how do you feel when you walk in? What do you think? That's my mindset, right? I'm not going to ask you about what you're doing for Thanksgiving. Nobody's worrying about no Thanksgiving. You'd be great. You should be grateful all year. And so I'm going to sit around and I'm going to, I pay attention to that because I'm just like, it is so common for you to get pulled in. And I'm a strong believer that when you are surrounded by groupthink in an environment where mediocrity or being average is the goal, everybody wants to fit in and conform and be this. And people who conform the most are the ones who have the most, positive outcomes from other people, right? People that conform the least are the problems. That's just how all environments have been. Even if their lack of conformity is not really changing anything in the environment, but what it does is open the minds of the people in the environment to see that there is another way. And a lot of people in most environments don't want the average person to see that there is another way, right? So I don't make it my business to hang in environments where I know there's a strong magnetic pull to mediocrity, right? Because you can't get around that. I force myself to get in environments where I have to be a little bit afraid that it might not work out, a little bit afraid that I'm gonna fall flat on my face, a little bit afraid that I'm not gonna get what I want to get out of this thing, but hell, I am living, right? So just keep that in mind. Groupthink is a mother. It will grab you and it will take you and it will make you think that all of the ways that you feel and things you want to do in life are all wrong. I remember somebody bothered me about going to see Marvel's Black Panther because they had attributed it to blackness to some degree. And I didn't see it the same way. I'm like, oh, Marvel characters. That was my attitude towards it. I wasn't going to go to the movie theater in kente cloth and, a daishiki or something like that. And so I was just like, I'm just not interested. I'll see it later when it's on like Netflix or something like that. And they got all up in the huff with me about the importance of, I'm like, it's a movie and I can do what I want. You know what I mean? So you have to watch groupthink because people are so quickly to try to tell you that everybody else is doing it. Don't you see that you're wrong? It really doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. Once you are solid on where you're at and what you're doing, you have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to become comfortable with being ostracized. You have to become comfortable with knowing that the way that you see the world and the way that you think about the world is not common. And also, even if it is more people that believe and think that way, the fact that you're acting on that way or the fact that you are start creating a life that you choose and you're manifesting and you're not allowing a job or a workplace or something like that to like control you and be the master of you, a lot of people can't understand that. And what's the funniest thing about most environments and places, it's not even asking that of you. It sees if it can get it from you. But if it doesn't think that it can get your essence out of you, it'll go ahead and settle for the good work that you produce. And then that's it, where the conversation ends, right? Because these places, that people and places and things, they want to consume you until you have no space to create your own ideas and your own mindset and move around the way that you choose, right? So be careful and pay close attention to groupthink and how when people get in mobs of ideas and thinking that they just throw it on you and you're supposed to just latch on because what everybody else is. No, be okay being ostracized. Be okay being on the outside. I promise you, fitting in, conforming, and being normal is not all the rage. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.